The Prime Minister pressing for world leaders to capitalize the loss and damage fund. Developers of the planned Hyatt Hotel secure funding. A breach of protocol was responsible for a tender being destroyed by fire. And in sports, West Indies march into the Super 8s at cricket's T20 World Cup.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Good evening. I'm Pearson Bowen. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Motley is pressing for the continued capitalization of the Loss and Damage Fund. That historic breakthrough was made at the UN Climate Change Conference, COP27, at the end of 2022 and approved at COP28 in Dubai. Currently, Ms. Motley notes it has not even met the $1 billion in capital. Equally important for the Barbadian leader is adaptation funding.
We do not want only to be able to pay and recover from the loss and damage that we had, but we want to avoid and avert loss and damage. Just over a week ago, we launched consultations on the Bridgetown Initiative 3.0 as we met in Antigua, the Small Island Developing States Forum, the fourth one. This is a call for decisive action to transform the rules around representation at the international financial institutions and to scale up significantly the funding that is available to each of us, while at the same time shock-proofing our economies to be able to withstand these multiple crises that we are facing.
Ms. Motley's comments came in a video address at a Global Leaders Forum organized by the UN Trade and Development. It is being held under the theme Charting a New Development Course in a Changing World. Ms. Motley stated that Barbados, like all small island developing states, has been dealt a difficult hand in dealing with inherent vulnerabilities.
For some, we have no control over such as our geography. But there are other issues confronting us that we can and that we must address. One such issue is access to appropriate financing. The financing gaps for sustainable development are growing exponentially. Estimates have illustrated that in at least an additional $3 trillion of investment, US dollars, is needed annually for developing countries. However, many developing countries lack access to affordable and adequate financing. Many lack the fiscal space. We therefore sometimes get the impression that small states are chided for our development aspirations.
Secretary General of the UN Trade and Development, Rebecca Greenspan, reminded that the global economy is very different today from what it was in 1964. She says technology has transformed the world, unlocking possibilities once unimaginable, and the digital economy is a powerful new engine of development. However, she says, for many developing nations burdened by debt and limited fiscal space, this resurgence is a distant horizon. She suggests the world is in need of a new moment.
Our internationally agreed rules-based economic order is being contested. A new multipolar world has emerged, but multipolarity without multilateralism is a path to fragmentation, a descent into trade wars and dwindling global cooperation. It is a world where the voice of the developing countries that are at the heart of our membership, our mandate, and our mission risk being lost in the cacophony of competing interests.
The developers of the proposed Hyatt Hotel have secured financing from the Afrexim Bank for the long-awaited project. $90 million is to be provided by the bank. The announcement came during day 2 of the 31st Afrexim Bank annual meetings in Nassau, the Bahamas. The Hyatt is to be constructed on lands located at Bay Street in Bridgetown. Executive Chairman of the Maloney Group, Mark Maloney, signed off on the deal. A $10 million trade finance facility to support the importation of cement was also secured for the Rockhard Cement Group. President of Afrexim Bank, Professor Benedict Orama, sees this as significant for Afro-Caribbean trade and spoke about the cement financing deal in particular.
Thank Mark for it. This is an example of the kind of changes we will be seeing in the coming days, weeks, months, and years. Maloney Group is a major cement manufacturer, processes clinker into cement and supplies many of the islands. and they used to import this clinker from somewhere in Europe. But now, with this facility, with the openings, the clinkers are likely now to be coming from Dangote Cement. So thank you very much.
Minister in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Investment, Senator Chad Blackman, is among the Barbados delegation in the Bahamas. During a plenary session titled Managing Macroeconomic Crises, Some Lessons from Africa and the Caribbean, he suggested time has long passed for countries of the Global South to have their own credit rating agencies. In proposing the idea, Senator Blackman stated current agencies on which the region rely have moved away from their original intent, and the implications are massive.
Because why? And no knock to them, but the credit rating agencies that we all look to in the world as we speak were not created by us or in our image. And therefore, how do you now ensure, and I was very glad to hear of the credit rating agencies coming out of Africa, there has to be agencies that can be created around the Global South that can stand the test of time with the credibility, but that the world also will respect.
A probe conducted into the loss of a fire tender in a cane field blaze at Locust Hall, St. George on the 13th of May has revealed that protocol was breached. This disclosure from Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, Wilfred Abrams. He was speaking to the members of the media during the inspection of 3 new fire tenders at the Bridgetown port.
With respect to the incident, it is clear that something went wrong. The mere fact that the fire truck burned means that something went wrong. A report was done, a full investigation was done. The established protocols were not followed. Right? There's more investigation still to be done, and then there's a consideration of what do we do next with the information. But I am comfortable following the initial report that the proper protocols were not followed, and that led to injury to a person and also to the loss of the fire appliance. The report is with me now from the Chief Fire Officer. We're now going to discuss what happens next.
Meanwhile, Chief Fire Officer Errol Maynard says while the fire service is now awaiting a settlement from the insurance, the officer who was injured during the incident is doing well.
I visited the officer. He has some burns on his shoulder and on his leg, so he's at home recovering. But at this point, we're just awaiting the report. I made the settlement from the insurance company, but the report on the incident has been submitted to the Minister for the consideration of Cabinet.
Well, you just heard about the new state-of-the-art tenders acquired by the Barbados Fire Service. Wendy Burt tells us the vehicles will be put to use as soon as next week.
These 3 new tenders, priced at $3 million, are now part of Barbados Fire Service's fleet. One of them will be assigned to the St. John Fire Station to replace the appliance that was burnt to shell last month. The remaining 2 will be placed in the Bridgetown area. Minister of Home Affairs, Information and Public Affairs, Wilfred Abrams, says the tenders will be on the road as soon as possible to supplement the capacity.
We have been lucky, I guess, in a way. When we lost the tender the other day, the chief said to me, I don't know what else could go wrong. Right? He said, I don't know what else could go wrong. But then these came in short order, and we are going to replace that. But we accept that we're below capacity. We've managed through the diligence of our fire officers and their reorganization of assets to be able to cover everything that happened in Barbados. But we've also been lucky. We haven't had anything major happen. So I'm glad, not would. I'm glad that we have these now to be pressed into action immediately. It makes me a little bit more comfortable. And I can assure the public of Barbados we're working to get to that point where we are perfectly covered. We're not there yet, but we're working on it.
Chief Fire Officer Errol Maynard says while Barbados now has 12 tenders, an additional 4 more are needed. Nevertheless, Mr. Maynard stresses that the new trucks will allow the service to function in a more efficient manner.
These vehicles have turrets at the bar, we call a monitor at the top, and that allows us to stay from a distance and extinguish a fire or control a fire that maybe an oil fire or a fire that requires foam or any sort. And that means that when we're in the Bridgetown area, it makes it much easier for us to fight a fire in the Bridgetown area.
Officials from the manufacturers will be in Barbados next week to train fire officers on the use of the new tenders.
Wendy Burt there reporting. Barbadians concerned about the recent spate of gun-related deaths are being assured that government is taking the issue of safety and security seriously. This from Minister of State in the Office of the Attorney General with responsibility for crime prevention, Corey Lane. He says government and its stakeholders are paying close attention to the vexing issue and implementing measures to deal with it.
Understand that we as a government, crime prevention, National Peace Program, the police service, the Office of the Attorney General are all on it in relation to making sure that initiatives are implemented to keep Barbadians and keep Barbados safe.
Minister Lane says the recent increase in shooting deaths is reason for his office to reach out to stakeholders to hold pertinent discussions at this time.
I'm always concerned any even violent fights, stabbings, anything like that will have me concerned. And it also causes us, as I told you, to always go back to the table, the round table, to reach out to people, to speak to NGOs, to speak to community leaders, to speak to all types of people, the church, and to speak to everybody in terms of making sure that we have the right initiatives in place and that we're touching on the right notes and we're doing the right thing.
Coming up, Barbados being better positioned to make data-driven decisions for the agricultural sector. Barbados is moving to improve its systems for collecting and managing agricultural data. The revelation from Minister of Agriculture, Food and Nutritional Security Indar Ware. He says the absence of adequate and appropriate infrastructure limits the country's ability to optimally manage the data collected. Mr. Ware was speaking at the start of a multi-stakeholder dialogue on national data infrastructure convened by the Commonwealth Secretariat.
The lack of a national approach to the management of data leads to duplicated systems that foster operational inefficiencies, data collection fatigue on data subjects, failure to scale innovations, inappropriate public policy due to fragmented data points, and data power imbalance between the data owners and the data holders. Moreover, the long-term implication of the absence of a national approach to data management is weak national digital sovereignty. That is, the lack of power and authority of a national government to make free decisions affecting citizens and businesses within the digital domain.
Government is embarking on Barbados' first geospatial mapping, a comprehensive effort to assist the most vulnerable people in Barbados this hurricane season. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Kirk Humphrey went into further details at today's post-cabinet press conference.
It allows us to determine, having put in the information, where people are located, the nature of their issues. So if a person has a disability, if a person is elderly, if a house is desperately in need of repair. And we are moving toward this because it allows us to make decisions faster. The idea of geospatial mapping, I think, is a good one, because on a computer system now, I can stand from my computer and hopefully one day get a chance to show the media and show you where the most vulnerable people in Barbados live.
Well, so far, information from 15,983 people have been entered. With this Atlantic hurricane season predicted to be one of the most active, the minister continues to urge Barbadians to be prepared, noting that the cost of not being ready is significant. Government spent more than $100 million in response to Hurricane Elsa.
Following Elsa, the government made a decision to try to assist everybody whose house was damaged, who was not in a position to help themselves. Because we had no preset lists, and because we didn't have a stated criteria, effectively, anybody who had damage, who was borderline, then we tried to assist you in repairing your house or rebuilding your house. That presented a staggering challenge to the government of Barbados, and we expended way more than was contemplated.
Also coming out of today's post-cabinet press conference is government's decision to tighten measures on its policy to allow Barbadians to benefit from VAT-free generators. Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs, Ryan Strawn, says while the policy intent is to allow as many householders to have access to generators, the system was being taken advantage of.
So moving forward, households now will be able to have access to generators, 5 kilowatts up to 25 kilowatts. And from an administrative perspective, this does not impact the household. This is in relation to those persons who actually do the importation in order to make sure then that generators within that range, 5 kilowatts to 25 kilowatts, are virtually warehoused so that the recording with respect to ensuring that the benefit actually goes to households and that the benefit is actually passed on to the consumer.
Barbados is being represented at the 17th session of the Conference of State Parties to the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities at UN headquarters in New York. St. James North MP and disabilities advocate Edmund Hinkson is representing the island. The conference, the largest global meeting focused on disability rights, is aimed at ensuring that countries uphold their commitments to guarantee equality for all individuals. Mr. Hinkson participated in a side event on developing and promoting implementation of the UN Convention and Disability Rights across the Commonwealth. There, he shared strides made by Barbados and how draft legislation will further assist.
We have a draft Rights of Persons with Disabilities bill, and in that bill we are proposing affirmative action principles in terms of employment as well as a quota system, 5% of persons in the public service employment to be persons with disabilities. And I was just wondering what has been the experience in some Commonwealth countries with having quota systems for employment of persons with disabilities.
A search is on for a wanted teenager who police have described as armed and dangerous. 17-year-old Akeem Jamar Grisette, alias Smiley or Bubbles, is wanted for questioning in connection with serious criminal matters. His last known address is Cutting Road, Haggart Hall. Grisette is advised that he can present himself to the Criminal Investigations Department at Borded Hall, St. George, accompanied by an attorney of law. Anyone who may know the whereabouts of Akeem Jamar Grisette is asked to contact the nearest police station. Members of the public are also reminded it is a serious offence to harbour or assist wanted individuals. Anyone caught committing this offence can be prosecuted.
The Business Report, brought to you with the compliments of Republic Bank. We're the one for you.
In business tonight, a government official is encouraging the financial sector to assist with greening Barbados. Business specialist with the Ministry of Energy and Business, Marlon Moore, shared his view during a meeting with the Hussar Corporation, port taxi owners, and CIBC Caribbean at the Bridgetown Port Incorporated. Trevor Thorpe has the details.
Speaking to the taximen gathered for the meeting, Mr. Moore says government is committed to greening Barbados, has a roadmap in place, and is putting its money where its mouth is. He says $26 million has been allocated for the initiative and provides some details.
Component one of the Smart Fund supports electric mobility. So right now there's $11 million of loans available to support this fund. So how far that will stretch depends on the cost of the vehicles and the interests of the public. So 200 is, I think, a reasonable projection. What we're saying, what the government is saying is we would encourage the support of other lenders, private sector, commercial banks, and so on. But we are putting our money where our mouth is with respect to the $11 million that the government is providing.
He adds that while entrepreneurs are free to look for their own financing, the Smart Fund is offering attractive rates.
The interest rate, mind you, is a very attractive 3.75%. So if you had to choose between your commercial lender and the fund, this should be your first stop.
Branch manager at CIBC Wildy, Francine Arthur, tells the Business Report, although it is early days yet, the bank is ready to sit down with taxi owners and owners of public transport to discuss terms and packages.
We want to play our part in Barbados going green, and we will offer financing for the electric vehicles. I know today the focus is on taxi owners, and we will offer their financing. What we will do is invite them in to come and have a discussion with us, and we can see how best we can help them to achieve their goal of owning the electric vehicle and helping Barbados to go green.
Greening Barbados is an initiative by the Ministry of Energy and Business with assistance from the Inter-American Development Bank and the European Union. It's intended to assist small and medium-sized businesses reduce energy costs. Trevor Thorpe for the Business Report.
Barbados and the Caribbean have been told that given the connection between Africa and the region, there is need for more trade and investment with the African continent. Executive Director of the International Trade Center, Pamela Cook-Hamilton, says despite challenges, new research shows trade between Africa and the Caribbean holds tremendous potential.
$1.8 billion for goods and services annually by 2028, to be exact. But we have a long road ahead of us if we're going to actually achieve that potential in practice, because getting to that number means getting rid of trade frictions and getting investments into the right sectors. I was on the bus this morning coming with one of the venture capitalists who set up in Jamaica. I was really happy to hear that, and I think he's already inked a deal with the Development Bank of Jamaica. So we're very happy to hear that. The past decade alone, for instance, shows that the share of African exports that goes to the Caribbean has been decreasing, not increasing.
Time for more sports. Anne-Marie.
And I promise you some other news other than cricket. We start with netball. The Barbados Netball Association is sending a 12-member squad plus 3 reserves to represent the island at the World Netball Youth Americas qualifiers in Guadeloupe from July 6th to 14th. The full team is Azaria Aline, Damia Waldron, Daya Padmore, Derica Haynes, Dasani Waith, Destiny Ford Haynes, Janae Austin, Kijana Johnson, Rihanna Wiggins, Shanita Callender, Shonika Griffith, and Zakelia Small. The reserves are Zara Branch, Serena Edwards, and Kezia Watts. The girls have been under the guidance of new technical coaching director and former UK national coach Pamela Hesson, who says she's comfortable with where the team is just about 2 weeks before the start of the qualifiers. They've been putting in some major work in some key areas.
The areas that we have been working on is really our attacking. Our defence is strong. We have a strong defence. They're very skillful, and they've been working very hard in terms of unit work in the defence. Our work-ons will be in attack. Our attack is strong as well, but we have to work on more game intelligence, stroke game sense. And what we mean by that is understanding their roles and responsibilities in attack, and also better decision making.
3 teams will qualify from each region to participate at the World Netball Youth Tournament in Gibraltar in September of 2025. Marian Johnson Hurley is Hesson's assistant coach, with Lynette Holder as the manager. Meanwhile, the Barbados Netball Association has signed a memorandum of understanding with the Barbados Bottling Company as one of their title sponsors of the Premier League for the next 3 years. The BBC will invest on an annual basis $25,000 Barbados dollars in total value, split between cash and kind. They will also provide all trophies and a series of special awards to be issued to specified categories of players and officials as determined by the BNA. It's agreed that one award will be for the emerging elite player that must be between the age of 13 years old and 18 years old. The Sani and Powerade will be official energy drink of Netball Barbados, and sale of product is expected to raise funds to assist with some of the finances of the national squads. President Dr. Carmita Duglin expressed her excitement and gratitude to BBC for coming on board at such a crucial time in the development of netball. Now, the curtain came down on the Olympians Classic recently at the Usain Bolt Sports Complex. It was a warm-up to next weekend's National Track and Field Championships, the 200s being the focus on the final night. The 200s will be our focus, and here comes a full field in the under 18 girls. Off the bend, it was not so clear-cut a call, so you know the final 100 was a true test of who would conquer. And with just about 80 meters to go in the middle of the field, Alika here would change gears and surge to the front. She's your winner in 25.73 seconds. Second, Naima Taylor, 26.03, and third, Crystal Bentham, 26.42. A sweep of the top three for Talents Club. You could say the under 18 boys race was over before it even started. As well, we lost an athlete seemingly to injury. Ada Moore was already the center of attention, leading them into the home stretch commandingly. The others really playing catch up. No denying he is in peak form, coming to the lane in 22.65 seconds ahead of Rashad Gibson 22.87 and Jaden Dowrich Roach 22.95. Moving up to the under 20 boys. Remember, these are 200s. Only 5 starters here, but no doubt in the quality in the field. And here comes Kyron Haynes, looking smooth like silk. He's having a good season. About to stop the clock at 21.95 seconds. Rodnico Carrington follows 22.42 and Adal Siu 22.60. All of extreme velocity. The open women's race saw a nurse waste no time in letting her competitors know that she was in charge. This is a class act of a run. More and more, she shows that she is one of the brightest stars among the women. In her usual Allen School jersey, crossing the lane in 24.33 seconds, Danae Niles is in there for a second, 25.06, just pipping her Talents teammate Khaleesi Downs, whose time was 25.11. And the men's open brought down the curtain on the Olympians Classic with all the running made in the latter stage of the race. He's the tallest of them and fastest of them all. Raheem Tate, best of talents, 21.31 seconds his time, ahead of Yazid Daniel and Tashawn Seeley of Elite Distance, whose times were 21.71 and 21.86 seconds.
And that's our time tonight. Thank you for spending it with us. I'm Pearson Bowen. For the crew, to all of you, good night. By God's will, we'll see you tomorrow.